In this video, I'm going to go through the different accessories available for CO2 incubators. I think it's important to note that CO2 incubators are functional as is, so you don't necessarily need any accessories to operate. Possibly a gas regulator, CO2 regulator that I covered in an earlier video. Sometimes, here again, customers have facilities, they have infrastructure already prepared for CO2 incubators. A lot of customers are repeat buying CO2 incubators, so they may already have either gas lines that are regulated or tanks with CO2 gas regulators. But aside from that, when you buy a CO2 incubator, it's pretty much functional from get-go. However, there's a few things that we can offer customers. It does come with shelves, but we can add extra shelves. You can have a look at the brochure to find out how many shelves it comes with. So the different models obviously will come with a different number of shelves. Really sold extra shelves to the CO2 incubator, but just in case, we have this option. A roller base, just in case the customer needs to move the CO2 incubator back and forth, move it around the lab for some reason. This is a really handy tool. A stacking kit, if a customer wants to reduce the floor space and have multiple CO2 incubators, want to stack two CO2 incubators one on top of the other, we can offer stacking kits. HEPA filter. Now, this is something that's more or less a consumable that needs to be replaced in a CO2 incubator. I can't tell you offhand the usage. I can't tell you offhand how often to replace a HEPA filter. It depends on the usage. Sometimes the customers that use their CO2 incubators more regularly will need to replace them regularly, as opposed to customers who use the CO2 incubators every now and again. Generally, they should last you about a year. I guess even the quality of the gas will also affect how often you replace the HEPA filters. Even though it's not on this list, it's probably worth to mention that the air filters that we mentioned in the first video as well is also consumable, and that will be replaced according to the quality of the CO2 gas supply and other factors in the laboratory and usage. It's best to do a service every year, and our technicians can advise if this needs to be replaced. A water pan. Our CO2 incubators do come with water pan. This is to introduce humidity into the CO2 incubator so your cells don't dry out, but you can purchase separate water pans as well. UV lamp. You can also add an UV lamp to a CO2 incubator to help with decontamination. However, you cannot use the UV lamp with high heat decontamination, so you can have both options if you choose either one. Most of the instances our customers go with high decontamination. I think it's a better method of decontaminating your incubator, but we do have UV lamp as an option. Holes for auxiliary. This is basically if you wanted to have a pro pod. So this is installed in factory at the side of incubator. I've mentioned as well that sometimes customers want to use over and above shaking incubators like live cell imaging devices inside an incubator. Installing a whole pod means we don't have to go through the glass door, so we can put our probes directly through this and seal this off so we can minimize CO2 loss and temperature loss. Divided doors. Now, this is very handy for some customers, and recently we've been offering quite a lot of customers this option. We do a lot of customers in universities, and sometimes more than one student or more than one researcher needs to use the incubator. They want to minimize contamination. They also want to minimize CO2 loss because, as you can imagine, these CO2 incubators, especially with the large ones, every time they open the door, you're going to have a lot of CO2 leaving the CO2 incubator, and also it affects the temperature. These divided doors are really handy. This is something as well, a lot of our customers don't know this option exists because our competitors don't have this option. It's worth discussing this with your customer as a value. It's a strong value proposition point as well. LED lamp for illuminating inside your CO2 incubator in case you want to see your cells grow. And power sockets. So you can install power sockets so you can directly connect your devices like orbital shakers inside the CO2 incubator rather than running a cable outside. So this is also possible for CO2 incubators. Over and above these accessories, we also have shakers. I have covered this in the models video that you can order a CO2 incubator with the CO2 as a combo, with the orbital shaker, with the remote shaker as a combo, or you can order these remote shakers separately. It depends on the sizes. We have various sizes, depends on the CO2 incubator that you are quoting your customer. And this is really neat because there are a lot of instances where our customers buy this regular orbital shakers and install in CO2 incubators. Sometimes they emit a lot of heat and they cause a lot of disruption. Sometimes these orbital shakers also, they're not designed to work with higher levels of CO2 at higher levels of temperature, and they malfunction over time. These shakers are designed specifically for CO2 incubators. It has a thin ribbon that minimizes any gaps between doors, and the remote control is on the outside, so you can adjust your settings on the outside without opening the door just to change your RPM or to stop your shaker. So obviously you minimize door opening time as well. Another thing that we have, and I think we should sell more of these than we really do, are cell culture roller racks. In the past, there were very limited suppliers with these options. We have a range of options available for small to really large CO2 incubators. So if your customers are growing cells in a Wheaton bottle or a cell culture bottle, this is a really handy tool that we can sell for our incubators, your customers' existing incubators as well.